into your seats, please. My name's Chris Whitaker. I'm an executive member of Saltise, but I'm really here today because Jim Slota couldn't be here. So I am Jim Slota Alpha today. Usually I'm Jim Slota Beta or Gamma. Of course, the Jim Slota is Jim Slota Alpha, but there's a time machine involved and we keep mixing things up. So anyway, good to have you here. Thank you for coming. I'm going to introduce the Concordia host, the Vice Provost, in a second. I just want to say something just quickly about our keynote speaker. Today I saw Mutlu at a conference in 2018 in London, gave a talk about education as a design science and was brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to hearing his talk today. So welcome to the 13th Saltise. I can't believe it's 13 already. Things go by fast. Before getting on to the introduction for our keynote, I'd like to invite Dr. Sandra Gabriel, the Vice Provost of Innovation in Teaching and Learning, to come up and say a few words.
Hi, thank you, Chris. Thanks for that introduction. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je m'appelle Sandra Gabriel et je suis la vice-rectrice adjointe exécutive pour l'innovation en enseignement et en apprentissage à l'Université Concordia. J'ai le plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue à l'Université Concordia et le colloque de Saltise. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandra Gabriel, and I'm the Vice Provost for Innovation in Teaching and Learning at Concordia University. I'm also a professor in communication studies here. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you here for this year's Saltise conference. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, is historically known as the gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We offer this acknowledgement of whose lands on which we gather today in order to respect the connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. I'm just delighted to be welcoming you here today, particularly as we kick off Concordia's 50th anniversary celebrations. It is a distinct honor for me to support the work of the CTL in my capacity as Vice Provo, especially as they make linkages with other communities of teaching practice and expertise across the province. It has been an important few years, especially the last 4 years for the CTL and for Saltise, with both entities seeing growth and renewal. I have often joked, though the joke is not really that funny, that it only took a pandemic for us to finally begin staffing the CTL to a level that will allow us to more meaningfully connect with our communities at Concordia. The CTL and Saltise share a commitment to collaboration, exploration, innovation, and enhancement of learner-centric teaching. It is the space of connection within a community, at times very localized, with a professor facing a challenge, or one wanting to push the boundaries to make a good learning experience an excellent one. It is a space of curiosity and rigor, yet never bereft of human connection, even when a non-human entity or technology might be at the heart of the enterprise. Fundamentally, what unites the respective missions of Concordia's CTL and Saltise is the goal to nurture an open and collaborative community that values teaching and learning. That's just to borrow from one of the CTL's newly revised goals. This is essential because the work of Saltise and the CTL is more important now than ever before. At a time when the value of higher education is continually questioned and our campuses continue to reflect the world's divisions and political impasses, it is the capacity to come together to promote the very best learning experiences we possibly can not only in spite of these challenges, but because of them. That marks who we are. We are educators. We are researchers. We are connectors. This conference is an opportunity for us to remember this and to recommit to this mission by sharing new insights through our research and practice. I wish you all a terrific conference and look forward to our upcoming keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gabrielle. Capacity to come together, I think that's really important. I'm glad you said that way. So it's my pleasure now to introduce the co-founders or co-coordinators of Saltise and the coordinators of this year's conference. My friends and colleagues, and I think you all know them quite well. Michael Dugdale from John Abbott College and Liz Charles from Dawson College.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sandra. That was a lovely, lovely opening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for supporting Saltise over the last 13 years. Michael has prepared a lovely presentation, and I will make sure that I follow his cue because I work really well extemporaneously. And so if you see him nudge me, not so gently, it's because I'm not following his cue. Okay, so to start off with, I'd like to thank the conference organizers. They are the many people in this room who have volunteered and given their time to Saltise over the last year, planning and making sure that this event goes very smoothly and that we have the best representation that we possibly can have from across our communities. And one of the things I'd like to also make sure that we mention is how our community grows, not just across the province, but grows across the country and even more widely with people on our community, on our conference committee, who are from Toronto, notably our friends from the Toronto Metropolitan University and from the University of Toronto, OISE. And those people give their time equally, because we're online, to making sure that we bring everyone together. So this is very nice. Very, very thankful for that. Our conference chair, Sueli Bonafim, or notably Sue, as she introduces herself always. Sue has done a remarkable job coordinating, corralling all of these volunteers and participants in the organizing committee. We also have all of the am I now on the Penifol? We also have the volunteers today, and we thank them. They are students and colleagues and staff from all of our institutions, Concordia, McGill, Dawson College in particular. We thank you all, and we thank very much the people who are organizing this. Armin and Joshua, thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Nous avons encore quelques remerciements à exprimer, mais ils méritent un peu de contextualisation. Chaque année scolaire apporte des défis uniques. Cette année, l'un d'eux a été les tensions dans le secteur public, heureusement résolues maintenant. Cependant, cela a conduit à la prolongation des calendriers académiques de nombreux collèges. Nos plans initiaux étaient d'organiser l'événement dans l'une de ces institutions, mais cela est devenu intenable avec le changement du calendrier académique. So we were very, very thankful that Concordia Center for Teaching and Learning were open to the idea of hosting this event for a second year in a row. And at the time, it was fairly late in the day to arrange that. So we're very grateful for their incredible support and collaboration throughout the preparation. Special thanks to John Paul Fox, Emily Albert Toth, and Josephine Guan from the CTL. And we also recognize that the calendar extensions mean many of you are still finishing up your semesters. Thank you very much for making space, for joining us during this busy time, whether you're here in person or for those joining us online. AI has been an important thread for the last couple of years in the conversations. Sometimes it's seen through a very optimistic lens, and sometimes the lens shows a little less optimism. The last two are spectacular. So this conversation isn't going away. AI is here, is coming, is changing things. There are good and there are bads about it, but this sets up the conversation that we've been having with Saltise this year.
Yes, so Saltise is always keeping an eye to the future and looking at how things like technology will impact how we're teaching, especially if we're thinking about trying to continue to engage students as our primary mission, engaging them to learn. So this year, our webinars have focused on some of these issues. We've been very lucky, once again, reaching out to our community to find experts in the field who are knowledgeable and willing to share their thoughts as well as engage with our community. So our webinars, we've had several webinars on AI. We've also had the good fortune of being able to start a program, an invited scholars program, where we invited one of our colleagues, Yanis Dimitriadis, from Spain, and he visited us and gave us that opportunity to work closely with him for a week, where we investigated these issues. Some of these issues being investigated with our colleagues at University of Montreal, so UDM, with Bruno Pelibert, who has been fortunate enough to bring together a group called Griptic that allows many colleagues from across the different institutions to work together and develop ways to think about using AI. And I wanted to make special note of this because, once again, the idea of how do we work across this incredible city of Montreal, across language barriers, across the levels, the university and the colleges, these are the things that are the value of Saltise. And I really think that you all should be giving yourselves a great hand of applause, because this is the good work, the results of this kind of working together. Oh, do I have? Okay. So this year's conference, hence leading to the topic of this year's conference, noting that we didn't say AI anywhere in that title. That was really important to us. We did debate that. But emerging technologies, because generative AI is just the beginning, and we didn't want it to be the only thing that people focused on.
Okay, and organized around that theme is our two plenary sessions. Our first is the keynote that we'll be seeing in a few minutes, and it explores the complex interactions between AI, analytics, and learning. Et la session en plein air de demain comprendra une discussion modérée sur ce thème avec un large éventail de parties prenantes. De plus, il y a un total de 36 sessions parallèles organisées selon des thèmes que vous verrez dans le programme en un coup d'œil. And we're also delighted to announce that this year our poster session is by far the largest we've ever had, due to a significant increase in the number of poster submissions. And what's more, we saw an exciting opportunity to showcase some posters from college and undergraduate student researchers. And the poster session will be held on the mezzanine immediately following the keynote. While this gathering is our largest event each year, of course, there's a lot more to Saltise, and we encourage you to check out our website at saltise.ca. There you'll find descriptions of a pile of resources that are created, the tools and the systems we've designed to support sharing and dialogue amongst educators.
Okay. And, we have, Michael put up a lot of the QR codes that you might be able to go take a look. We encourage you to do so. And we're just going through very quickly. These are the kinds of things you can find. And some of the people who use these really well are in the audience, so please find them and find out about them, how to use them. But more than anything else, we'd like to thank all our sponsors. Once again, we really value you. Our main funding comes from the Entente Canada-Québec, and we would like to thank, in particular, our orientation committee, le comité d'orientation. C'est un plaisir de dire le bienvenue à le représentant de le ministère qui sont ici avec nous ce matin, ce jour, c'est pas le matin encore. Donc,
Oui, donc, excusez-moi, nous souhaitons également la bienvenue à Madame Natacha Bouchard et Madame Marie-Claude Proux du ministère d'Enseignement supérieur et le remercions d'assister personnellement à cette édition de notre colloque. And we'd just like to say again, thank you very much for coming. We hope you find the conference informative and engaging. Encore une fois, bienvenue, merci d'être venu et nous espérons que vous trouverez la conférence inspirante, informative et engageante.
Profitez bien. Okay, so now we'd like to welcome Professor Preeti Reman from the Toronto Metropolitan University to introduce our keynote.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Saltise keynote session. Years ago, I came to my first Saltise and was motivated by the keynote that year. I was in the first row, sitting there, listening to the keynote by Alyssa Wise, and that was the start of my fascination with learning analytics, which took me to a career and a job in that field. So Saltise has been really influential in my educated journey, and I stand here thanks to many of you. Fast forward to today. As we were looking to invite, and the keynote committee was deliberating, we wanted somebody who is an inspiring learning scientist, but also they need to be an expert on emerging technologies in education, especially thinking about both the potentials and the pitfalls, our Saltise theme for this year. We got very lucky to talk to Mutlu. whose keynote at LAC this year pushed many, many conversations around generative AI, AI in general, and emerging technologies forward. It is such a pleasure to introduce Professor Mutlu Cukurova. Mutlu Cukurova is a professor of learning and artificial intelligence at University College London. He investigates the potential of AI to understand and support human learning. I guess human learning is the most important part there to this community, with a particular interest in learning how to learn and complex problem solving collaboratively. His work emphasizes human-AI complementarity, aiming to address the pressing socio-educational challenge of preparing people for a future that AI systems, and that will require a great deal more than the routine cognitive skills currently our education systems prize. Professor Cukurova is the director of the UCLAIT team and works with UNESCO's Unit for Technology and AI in Education as an external expert. He is currently leading the report on UNESCO AI competency frameworks for teachers and students. Best of all, in my conversations with Mutlu this morning, I also learned that he was just as excited to be here and to be invited to Saltise, and truly appreciates finding out real-world concerns, talking to us practitioners, and having practitioners as partners in the future of education. Mutlu.
Many thanks for this kind introduction. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to be here. I would like to repeat the thanks that were given to all of you, first of all, sparing your time to be here, your valuable time. I have noticed that many participants today are actually practitioners, which is lovely. I know how busy everyone is, so I really appreciate the fact that you came here to listen to me for 1 hour of your time. Thank you very much for this. I would like to thank all the organizing committee, including my colleagues here, particularly Elise Charles for the kind invitation here. I also would like to thank to our hosts today at this fantastic venue at Concordia University. So thank you very much for having us. Well, today I was invited to talk about AI in education, and I'll try not to disappoint you by giving as much detail as possible in this front. I also would like to, before I get into the talk, it was working well, but...
Looking for
All right, okay, it's fine. Let's don't touch it, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I can thank for 5 more minutes, but I can't thank the entire talk, so thank you. Let me start by also stating the fact that I tried to put together a talk that is not necessarily very academic, in the sense that I will not be getting into the particular details or methodologies of the research that I will be presenting here, because I wanted to create a bit more of an engaging and a little bit more highlightation that hopefully will give you some insights into the work that we have been doing. Great. Let me start by asking you a very quick question. How many of you guys have already tried and experimented with GPT for all, Omni? For all. Omni. Oh, wow. 1. Okay. And how many of you guys have actually seen this video where the real-time interaction is happening? Oh, quite a few. So because it's very few, I would like to spend a couple of minutes to show you what is the state of the art in terms of human-AI interaction and what it can do in educational settings.
Myself and my son Imran here to try out some of their new technology. And so we're curious about how good it might be at tutoring someone in math on Khan Academy. So let's get it started. It's loading up. All right, make sure you can see our screen.
Actually, in this format,
hello there. I'm here with my son, and I'd love you to tutor him on this math problem, but don't give him the answer. You can ask questions and nudge him in the right direction, but I really want to make sure he understands it himself. And he's here in the room, so you can talk to him directly.
Of course, I'd be happy to help. Let's look at the problem together. Can you first identify which sides of the triangle are the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse relative to angle alpha?
All right, so I'm pretty sure this is the angle alpha right here, right?
Perfect. That's correct. Now, looking at the triangle, which side do you think is the hypotenuse?
Really,
Remember the hypotenuse?
I'm not totally sure. I think it might be this one, but I really am not sure. This side AC.
You're close. Actually, side AC is called the adjacent side to the angle alpha. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle and is directly opposite the right angle. Can you find which one is the hypotenuse?
Oh, okay, I see. So I think the hypotenuse is this really long side from A to B. Would that be correct?
Exactly. Well done. Now that you've identified the hypotenuse, can you identify which side is the opposite side to angle alpha?
Okay, well, I mean, you told me earlier that this was the adjacent side, and I know that's the hypotenuse, so I'm guessing that this side, BC, is the opposite side.
Great deduction. That's absolutely correct. Now that you've identified all the sides relative to angle alpha, do you remember the formula for finding the sine of an angle in a right triangle?
Yeah, I know that the sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse.
Perfect.
So I think you got the point. This is multimodal. I'm not playing the entire video, so you can go and watch yourself. Real time, no particular prompt engineering, apart from the fact that initial command was given by Salcommon here. You can actually structure the interaction based on this initial command. This is fascinating in many senses from a technological development point of view. We are indeed living in a rapid technological advancements, sometimes that are considered as fantastic opportunities to be able to support human learning, student learning, and augment teaching practices, but at the same time, challenging some of the fundamental values that we have been put in place as societies while we were creating our education systems. These technologies are considered to threaten human agency. They are threatening and risking privacy and security protection of teachers and students, as well as potentially deepening some of the long-standing educational inequalities, systemic inequalities that we have within our education systems. So this appears to be a pivotal moment for all of us as scientists, as social scientists, as practitioners, as policymakers, to get together and convene to have a serious discussion about the future of education that will be embedded with the values that we hold dearly, so that we can move towards this direction and use these kind of fascinating technological advancements in a responsible manner. What do we call AI anyway? Like, what are these technologies? Significant amount of excitement and interest within AI in education comes from the recent advancements in generative pre-trained transformers, those GPTs. All of these models that you have observed are based on a transformer architecture that we are calling in AI literature. These are models that are pre-trained on a very large scale data set. A lot of it is coming from web-crawled information, which is used as input in tokens to the transformer architecture that we are seeing. So you can tokenize textual data, you can tokenize videos and pictures, or audio input that are fed into a transformer architecture, which leads to a particular prediction in terms of what would be the most likely next token. These systems are, in essence, working on the iterative cycles of forward passing, loss function calculation, backpropagation, and weight updates to the model itself in order to be able to predict the most likely next token. All of these GPTs are structured in 4 components. The first component is called embeddings, which is a representation of the input token in a multidimensional vector space with matrix values. Attention mechanisms, which are used to calculate the relationship between these tokens. Multilayer perceptor models with trillions of model parameters, and the embeddings of the tokens for the predicted models are further fine-tuned with approaches like reinforcement learning with human feedback in order to be able to apply them for a particular task in specific contexts. And in essence, this is what we are calling these 4 components combined together as AI tools. Now, many people in the audience are practitioners, educators. You might be thinking that I'm a practitioner. Why do I even need to know what vector embeddings are? Why do I even need to know what attention mechanisms are? And why do I need to be able to tell how these models actually work? Some of you might be CS experts, CS professors, who already know these kind of models in detail. But it matters. It matters hugely because when we talk about how these models work and artificial intelligence, compared to when we talk about human intelligence, we use different set of values, different set of concepts. Intelligence is a complex and multifaceted concept. It expands beyond commonly considered cognitive capabilities to include emotional and social components, acknowledging that intelligence is not just about how well one reasons, but it is also about how well interacts with the world and others in it. It is not only about what is certain, what is decontextualized, disembodied, and tokenized into its parts so that it is predictable and controlled. It is also about understanding things that are fluid, about the ability to live with and survive despite of uncertainty. And that what we are seeing as parts might actually be wholes at a whole another level. Lack of these considerations is one of the reasons large language models are sometimes referred to as stochastic parrots. Stochastic in that they are based on probability calculations, and parrots because they appear to have no understanding of the particular next prediction that they are making. Yet, this is not a competition. Humans are very good at many things that today's AI is still poor at, and AI is good at some others. This is not to say humans are more intelligent than AI either, or vice versa. We are just differently abled. Thinking about human and AI as differently abled agents emphasizes the importance of complementarity. And when the relationship between the two holds, they are invincible. If not, then the interaction can be detrimental for either of the agents. And this is particularly worrying for humans. When we start thinking about intelligence in these broad terms, recognizing the differences between human intelligence and AI, it becomes clear that considering AI just as an applied tool is only one part of a much bigger picture. AI can be conceptualized to externalize, be internalized, or extend human cognition. As the first conceptualization goes in the externalization of cognition, certain human tasks are defined, modeled, and replaced by AI as a tool. In the second conceptualization, AI models can be useful as models to change human representation of thought. What we think as good in a learning situation can be challenged and directed towards a different direction with what good looks like in a computational model. At last, AI models can be used to extend human cognition as part of a tightly coupled human-AI systems, in which the emergent intelligence is synergistic. So that is, it is expected to be more than the sum of each agent's intelligences, artificial and human. If we try to map this conceptualization on the coordinates of Ben Schneiderman's human control and agency versus automation through AI, perhaps most traditional educational technology can be considered to have a low allowance for automation and low allowance for human agency. With the initial proliferation of AI in education, many researchers had this ambitious goal of creating systems that are as perceptive as human tutors, human educators. This led to a significant development in the area of AI in education with regards to intelligent tutoring systems. I'm sure some of you would be very familiar with this line of work. And similar hypes are now surrounding foundational models with their ability to automate various human tasks for us today. For instance, in the teacher-facing interfaces, these models are considered as better search engines for information retrieval for teachers, an opportunity to ask questions directly to the model rather than trying to retrieve information through web searches. In addition, these models have significant improvements compared to the traditional machine learning approaches with regards to natural language processing tasks, which means that a lot of the content generation related tasks of a teacher can be supported with these technologies to improve the productivity of a teacher. I put here some examples from the recent Khan Academy product, Khanmigo, that these tools can be used for lesson planning, creating examples and applications that connect classroom learning to real-world contexts, generating questions to encourage further classroom discussions, supporting assessment item generations, lesson hooks, or generating learning objectives. We see many examples of these tools are emerging, and I heard today in the morning that some of you are already exploring the potential of tools. This particular tool, unfortunately, is not available in Canada. I checked last night very briefly. It's only available in the States, but it is based on a set of prompts that you, as experts, teachers, practitioners, you can write to be able to create similar content on similar tasks. It is not rocket science in this manner. However, these tools that provide productivity gains for teachers are only useful for certain tasks in certain contexts. Education is different from many other contexts in the sense that oftentimes productivity gains in what people can do is not necessarily the only goal of interacting with an AI agent. This is particularly the case for learners. When students are engaged in a task, learning from the experience of engaging in the activity is often the main goal rather than the completion of the task per se. Therefore, the productivity gains in completing the task matters less. Currently, there is significant interest and investment from leading AI developers on developing student-facing AI tutors, such as Google's LearnLM tutor. I would like all of you guys, as experts, teachers, practitioners, and researchers, to have a look at OpenAI Sam Altman's vision on this topic of creating a student-facing AI tutor.
I met with a new company this morning, or barely even a company, it's like two people that are going to work on a summer project, trying to actually finally make the AI tutor. And I've always been interested in this space. A lot of people have done great stuff on our platform, but if someone can deliver like the way that you actually like, they used a phrase I love, which is this is going to be like a Montessori level reinvention for how people learn things.
Yeah.
But if you can like find this new way to like let people explore and learn in new ways on their own, I'm personally super excited about that.
Now, I very much appreciate the ambition. Two people working on a summer project to finally actually make the AI tutor, deliver the way, doesn't really follow up, for Montessori level reinvention for how people learn things. I very much appreciate the ambition, but to me, two people working on a summer project to make an AI tutor for such level reinvention for how people learn things is naive at best and dangerous for the future of education at worst. AI has been formally studied for over 40 years. There is a research community called Artificial Intelligence in Education with annual conferences. There is an international academic journal of artificial intelligence in education. And the community produced many successful student-facing tools that adapt to the individual level of mastery and needs of each student, tailoring the content, pacing, and feedback accordingly. I put here a few of these examples, very early on examples from CMU or from the community like Duolingo. Even though these tools are traditionally designed and created to focus on a particular pedagogical task automation in digital learning environments, they can also work with data from physical spaces and can also focus on a range of affective, metacognitive, and engagement tasks. Here is an example from my own lab that we built using multimodal data to detect students' engagement states while they are working with an intelligent tutoring system. So the system processes data from students' heart rate for affective modeling, seat pressure to be able to judge they are leaning forward or backwards, and facial recognition for students' level of awareness. It aims to provide suggestions for resting or adjust the content or pacing or feedback according to the student's level of drowsiness. These systems are also not limited to traditional human-generated educational content, but can be delivered with AI-generated synthetic media. In our experimental research, investigating the potential of using AI-generated synthetic videos to create viable educational content for intelligent tutoring systems, here you can see an entirely AI-generated video delivering the same content of a lecturer going in front of a screen or a teacher going in front of the camera to record the content. And in our work, we did not find any statistically significant difference in terms of learning gains and learner experiences. So these tools can also provide significant opportunities in terms of the content delivery in these kind of approaches. In the morning, I saw fascinating talks about hybrid teaching and the challenges of creating videos for these kind of MOOC settings, and these kind of opportunities can be useful to be used in these setups as well. Now, such tutoring systems are great. They seem to be working very well for various domains and knowledge acquisition tasks. There is indeed good evidence, both at the individual studies level, but also at the meta-reviews level, that this system can achieve impact in real world in terms of content acquisition, particularly for the subjects of maths, algebra, and language learning. Oftentimes, when you look at the evidence, you can see that these kind of AI systems can achieve superior delivery compared to a human tutor who has not been trained to deliver in these particular subject areas. But they are inferior for one-to-one tutoring to an expert teacher, human teacher, which does make sense. Now, considering that these systems are not necessarily new, the evidence about their effectiveness is not necessarily new, one question for all of us to ponder upon is why they have not been prevalent in our education systems. I talked to a lot of academicians and computer scientists who are designing and developing these technologies. And when I pose this question, it is almost always about the technology itself. It's about the scalability of the technology. It's about the transfer of a particular model. But very rarely people actually talk about the real factors that are barriers in terms of the real-world adoption of these technologies. There are various reasons, factors influencing the adoption and use of AI in education that are much broader than the effectiveness of a specific AI technology that we are studying in our experiments. These include, but are not limited to, policy landscape, institutional governance, pedagogical culture, technological infrastructure, and social support mechanisms provided to teachers while they are using these tools. In our recent work, looking at the factors influencing teachers' adoption of AI in schools, working with about 800 school teachers, we observed that although AI tool-related factors were indeed important, they were not necessarily the most important factors influencing the adoption of these technologies in real-world contexts. Not generating any additional workload, teachers' knowledge of and confidence in using AI, increasing teacher ownership on the success and failure of these tools, generating support mechanisms for help when needed, and being able to address all the ethical and privacy-related issues with regards to the use of these technologies will be very important factors when we are adopting these technologies. So we should never forget that the tools we are working on are not only closed engineering systems, but are part of a large socio-technical ecosystem. And many factors will influence their adoption and effectiveness in the real world. Second, evidence of the impact that is observed in research studies tend to disappear once the facilitation and orchestration of these technologies are left to the hands of the real-world teachers. These results highlight the importance of improving teachers' competencies in the use of AI for any intervention to show real-world impact. The key distinctions between AI and traditional ICT tools necessitate the definition of a set of new competencies for teachers. This demands a stronger emphasis on the human-centered thinking, human agency, ethical considerations of these particular technologies, and the human-centered pedagogical design of these technologies when they are implemented in teaching and learning settings. When I talk about teacher competencies, many of the discussion stems and revolves around helping teachers use or how to use a particular tool, or giving them a very basic foundational understanding of AI models. To me, this is only one part of a much bigger picture. Here, you can see the most recent version of the AI competency framework for teachers from UNESCO that we have been working on. As you can see, AI foundations and applications is only one part of a multidimensional AI competency development that is needed. Third, when I get into the details I'm not going to get into the details of the framework itself, but I want to maybe say a few words with regards to those distinctions between the AI tools and ICT tools in general. There is a lot of discussion whether we need to start helping teachers develop a new set of competencies, even if they are digitally very competent. And to me, the unique distinctions, particularly with regards to the non-deterministic nature of AI technologies, require a particular set of competencies that are not necessarily delivered in the previous digital competency training approaches. We need people to move towards developing a critical attitudinal orientation while they're interacting with these technologies. To me, AI is not a traditional tool in the deterministic calculator sense, neither it is actually a traditional tool with regards to the impact on human agency. So this requires a whole new set of competencies that would require teachers to work on. And we should be all working together as part of researcher, practitioner partnership to evolve towards the direction that we are all aiming for. Second, when we think about AI in an AI to deliver pedagogy for one approach, this approach is sometimes argued to potentially dehumanize education and learning. When AI in education is considered in a narrow sense as lonely individuals working on their own in front of a screen, this might indeed lead them to prioritize information gathering and declarative knowledge acquisition over the tacit knowledge and wisdom that comes through rich experiences in the real world, through embodied interactions with others in the real world. Particularly if these systems are considered as a replacement for human interaction or humans' interaction within the real world, then the knowledge that comes through these embodied interactions can be replaced with tokens of representation in these AI models that are far off the actual constructs that we would like students or humans to develop. Learning is not only about absorbing information, and education is not only about learning. On the other hand, these technologies can also be used as opportunities for increasing the amount of student interactions with each other and or with adults. Let's have a look at one of these attempts in one of the United States schools.
As artificial intelligence tools like online chatbots become more prevalent, some schools are figuring out how to bring those tools into the classroom.
One private school in Austin isn't just letting students use those tools, it's relying on them to teach core subjects. KVU's Darrenisha Heron explains.
A school with no teachers It sounds like a nightmare, but Mackenzie Price, the co-founder of Alpha Private School, says it's actually the wave of the future.
What we do have is a lot of adults who are in the room engaging with these kids, working as coaches. So they're helping the kids get clear on like, what are some goals that they're working on? What are they doing academically?
So how do they learn? The students work one-on-one with artificial intelligence for 2 hours at the start of the day.
So it's the educational information that regular schools are also teaching with, but AI apps are feeding them to students at the appropriate level and pace that they need.
It goes as far as historical figures explaining their own histories.
We believe that education should adapt to every student's unique needs and interests.
To basic comprehension quizzes. Fifth grader Byron loves the instant feedback, which he says he didn't get in public school.
It explains a detailed explanation of why the correct answer is correct, not just saying, oh, here's your correct answer. You can answer the question this way next time.
Price says the lessons are customized for every student.
I'm not playing all the videos until the end because we spent quite a bit of time early on with the technical difficulties, and I don't want my talk to run over. But you can find all of this information. The big picture here is that students, rather than spending 8 hours of their school time in front of the screen, which might be one dystopian feature of AI in education, they're actually spending about a couple of hours for content acquisition, and they are spending the rest of their school hours working with adults on lifelong learning skills. Now, this actually highlights the importance of instructional design. It is not the tool itself per se. In both implementations, the tool is exactly the same, but how exactly it is implemented will have a significant impact on the outcomes that we will be observing in our educational setups. Such an approach would require significant amount of innovation in our education systems, including our assessment structures. As in the case we watched, if students are spending 6 hours of their school time working on lifelong learning skills, then we should be focusing on our assessment structures. How do we actually accurately, reliably, and validly evaluate, assess these lifelong learning skills? AI applications can indeed be detrimental if we are using them to automate bad practices of existing education systems. When we speak to students and teachers in the UK, we observe that a lot of them expect AI to automate the current practices of their assessment requirements. So in a dystopian future, we might end up in a situation where students use AI to write their essay submissions or assessments. Teachers use another AI to assess these submissions. And although AI is heavily used in our education systems, very fancy schools with strongly AI-embedded features, nobody actually learns, and nobody actually gets the satisfaction of flourishing a person. Although most skills and competencies we are interested in and expect our students to develop through education in modern societies are process-driven, oftentimes these are only evaluated with the outcomes of these skills rather than looking at the entire process itself. We need to move towards innovations in our assessment structures that encourage process evaluations rather than only looking at outcomes. Essay writing is a fantastic example of this. When essay writing is given as a task to a student, this is most often not because we expect our student to write an essay that would contribute to the human knowledge. I have never received an essay in my teaching from a student that I said, oh my God, this is the fantastic outcome that I was observing to see, and I should go and publish this particular paper. I assign these assessments, these assignments to the students, mainly because throughout the entire process of writing an essay, I expect students to develop crucial skills. How to look for information, how to synthesize knowledge, how to be able to set up your own goals, to be able to manage a task that is given to you, how to monitor your progress in these goals. And these should be the core of our assessments, not what is produced at the end only. In my teaching, when I give the essay submissions, assignments, in recent years, in addition to traditional feedback on the particular outcomes, I have been also providing students with personalized behavioral feedback based on their writing engagement analytics using their data from the online word processing platforms. So I ask my students to allow me to have access to their interactions on their Word document or Google Docs, whatever product that they are using. I'm collecting data from their interactions with regards to the amount of time that they spend, what kind of content do they edit, how much space they put in their writing of the essay. Do they cram the night before or actually have been spending 3 weeks on their interaction trying to generate an essay? And then to what extent they are setting up goals early on in their essays and to what extent they monitor their progress on these goals. And based on these analytics, we send feedback emails to the students highlighting pathways and ways that they could improve their process of writing an effective essay. Such an intervention appears to be very effective, particularly for those students who are initially predicted to fail. To be fair, they don't appear to be working for those students who are already very good at what they are doing. But that is fine, as long as they help to those students who would not be able to write good essays otherwise. Another important dimension I would like to highlight is the fact that we need significant amount of work with regards to addressing the social-psychological barriers to the use of AI in education. Teachers and learners tend to have confirmation biases and unrealistic expectations from AI in education. A few years ago, in our research, we showed that when people are presented with the content framed as coming from AI, they were judging it less credible and trustworthy compared to the same content that was framed as coming from educational psychology or neuroscience. Now, similar results are emerging. When AI-generated content or feedback is presented to students, they tend to judge it as lower quality and trust it less compared to the human-framed content. There is emerging work, indeed, focusing on how do we measure and gain the trust of teachers and learners in the use of AI-generated content, but considerably more research is needed in this space to optimize the trust, not bluntly trusting or rejecting the potential of these technologies. Therefore, based on the tools that we have been using and studying, based on the lessons learned from decades-long research in AI in education, I assert that AI tools alone are very unlikely to democratize or revolutionize education. I say very unlikely, putting my researcher and academic hat on, being doubtful. But I can be more confident to say that despite people like Sam Altman's expectations, who are leading the entire AI generation landscape, it's not going to happen as a result of 2 people working on a summer project. The change in education systems is likely to happen gradually, and we, as key stakeholders, perhaps can steer it towards a particular direction that is intentional, evidence-informed, and human-centered. This direction should be led by you, the practitioner, to me, the real heroes of education systems. And these kind of conferences, like Saltise, in which researchers and practitioners are on equal grounds, respecting each other's area of expertise and knowledge, to create and stimulate this discussion is a fantastic starting point to steer this direction towards a future that we all are hoping to see. So far, I have been talking about this conceptualization of AI as a tool. However, AI in education can also be conceptualized as computational models of complex learning phenomena for humans to internalize and change their representation of thought. These lead to relatively low automation systems that allow high human agency and control. So, although everyone comes to a learning situation with their own mental model of what success looks like, as well as the mental models of learners and teachers hold about themselves, we can use data to model what success looks like in a computational approach, present these models back to the students and teachers, and refine our mental models through the interaction with computational models. Let me try to give a few examples. This might be a bit too complex. With my team for the last decade or so, we have been mainly focusing on these open-ended learning environments and trying to design analytics and AI models that would support teachers and learners in these kind of very complex design-based learning situations and activities. For instance, we were investigating students who were engaged in open-ended design tasks in an engineering higher education setup. And we have been collecting data through two-dimensional and three-dimensional videos for face and gesture analysis, tracking the speed and distance between their hands, logging all of their interaction with the IDE environment that they are using as part of their physical computing kits, their mobile tool reflections, the notes that they are taking, as well as their emotional states that are modeled with these computer vision systems. Now, if we take the first conceptualization of AI, we can use these kinds of data to build machine learning classification of success in these environments. So first, think about all of these different modalities of data to be able to calculate some independent variables that you think might be relevant to the task at hand. Then we ask expert teachers, researchers, who are watching these videos and meticulously labeling their behaviors to be able to create a competency classification on, let's say, their collaboration or their collaborative problem solving. Then you have all of this input data as multimodal data source. Then you have output labels from expert teachers / researchers. It becomes a machine learning problem. How do I build a reliable classification model or a regression model that would help me accurately predict these labels? Oftentimes, the ultimate goal of such a prediction is to generate some kind of a dashboard for a teacher or input to an AI agent that would directly intervene in the practice. Here, you can see an example of a multimodal learning analytics system for teachers to help them prioritize and structure their interaction with students. The results indicate that when teachers are using the dashboard, they indeed spend statistically significantly less amount of time in their close monitoring actions and statistically significantly more amount of time providing scaffolding activities. It looks like students are also spending statistically significantly less amount of time in their bored engaged states, and there might be a positive impact on their learning gains. To me, the use of AI that directly intervenes in the practice of teaching and learning in such constructivist learning environments have significant challenges. These issues broadly relate to threatened teacher agency, the accuracies of the predictions in the social contexts, and the normativity issue of not being able to decide what is actually or eventually a good intervention in such a constructivist learning environment. Of course, there are also significant issues that are well documented, which include the hallucinations of these models, algorithmic bias that are built into these models, lack of transparency in the best performing prediction models, and the accountability of actions that are delivered with these AI models. But I think the challenge is even bigger than these. My issue is that I am not convinced if it is always possible to make a mathematical narrative or a model to predict how a complex social system behaves. Is it always possible to explain or predict all aspects of human learning and human competence development? AI was coined as a term in the Dartmouth College Summer School proposal in 1956 based on the conjecture that every aspect of human learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Since then, we somehow live under the impression that if only we could find them, there would be formulas and models to somehow predict all aspects of human learning. Yet maybe to find out that to be able to develop what such learning is, we have to go through the same irreducible steps of the system itself. Maybe some aspects of learning just come through the slow experience of living those learning moments. This itself makes the time spent on them more meaningful in the sense that we just can't jump ahead to get the answers with the predictions that come from an AI model telling us what would be the most productive next step to take in these complex socio-constructivist learning activities. On the other hand, if we take the second conceptualization of AI as computational models for humans to internalize, they can be considered as opportunities to describe the learning processes in more precision rather than aiming for the potentially impossible task of prescribing acts for the future based on the predictions of the model. Seymour Papert famously noted, "You can't think about thinking without thinking about something." In this sense, AI models can be objects to think about human learning. Here, you can see an example from our own work for the concept of collaboration. Moving from the digital traces of audio data and video data processed with natural language processing and computer vision to be able to model group interaction behaviors and their connections to particular outcome measures that we are interested in. Sometimes colleagues may get the impression that our attempts are for or only to build prediction models. If such an impression is taken forward, as the constructs are broken down into smaller components, more mechanistic measures of how much, how fast, or how precisely a particular component is completed may be prioritized. Here, as if one keeps the eye contact for 1 more second, starts speaking with a peer 1 second earlier, clicks the resource button faster, or start speaking with other tutors much longer, spending time in their interaction more amount of time, this will lead to the expected competence development in collaboration. For certain learning experiences, more and faster completion of a particular component does not necessarily lead to an increase in the quality of the learning experience. Such measures are great for measuring the capabilities of machines, but not for all aspects of human learning. Therefore, in our work, we tend to take a more modest goal of using these models for descriptive purposes, trying to talk about more precisely and formally about the lived experiences of students and teachers so that we can make lived experiences of learning more visible to teachers and learners. For end users, the models provide specific and precise feedback opportunities to improve their awareness of the lived experiences and keep them more motivated to engage next time in these kind of learning activities. Building on the same example above, these are the visualizations that we are providing after every group work to the students with regards to the speech time percentages and the type of group interactions each group is sent as part of their feedback. These are the different types of group interactions students engage with in the timeline of a learning activity, and the relevant feedback is provided based on these models' predictions, but not necessarily helping them to take a particular act as a next step, but giving them opportunities for self-awareness and reflection. In my view, these models are tools for making sense of a phenomena that we are interested in and modeling. They are not necessarily the mirrors of the reality representing the complex process of collaboration itself. Of course, such models are not only limited to nonverbal interactions. We have been working on models that detect speech in groups, transcribe it from speech to text, and label the text with groups' challenge moments so that we can provide further feedback to the students on their challenge moments of the lived experiences. When we evaluate the value of such feedback to the teachers and learners, it is always fascinating to see that they tend to find them very valuable to increase their awareness of their own learning experiences, but also awareness of the others within the learning situations. The accountability of this awareness of what has just happened tends to influence both their own engagement with the learning experience and the regulation of their behaviors as part of these interactions. Therefore, I argue that making the lived experiences and learning more visible and explicit with computational models is still significant, important for educational practice, regardless of any kind of prescriptive advice that might come from these kind of models in social constructivist teaching and learning environments. These opportunities also are not limited to the practitioners, because when we start talking about and describing these learning processes in more formal language, we can create opportunities to advance the learning sciences theories as well. There is significant work that is looking at some of the Piaget's early claims on the value of motor interactions, and my colleague Dor Abrahamson has been challenging some of these fundamental propositions from early learning sciences theories with the help of these descriptive models that help us talk about these processes in more formal language and more precisely. Now, towards the end, this leaves us with the last corner of high automation and high human agency, the corner of human cognition being extended with AI in tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligence systems. I have not really talked about this corner as much, mainly because I think we are yet to see substantial work on this particular front in AI in education. At best, the current complementarity paradigm that we have is to make a better match of what humans can do and what AI can do with the problems to be tackled to achieve productivity gains, rather than trying to make humans more intelligent. More commonly, for any given job, we tend to give up our agency to AI to complete a task for us, which in turn is expected to improve the performance of task completion. We must be judicious in selecting the tasks we delegate to AI, as the over-reliance on AI could lead to the atrophy of critical competencies in the long term. On the other hand, for AI models that are internalized by humans, the goal of the model would always be to fade away, as the human's competence at the task that is modeled develops. Through their interaction with the AI models, we would expect AI models to disappear and fade away. At last, extending human cognition for intelligence augmentation in a tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligence systems would require AI to be a synergistic superstructure on top of the human intelligence in a way that as the interaction with the tool increases, our competence at the task that is being modeled also increases. Our interactions with AI systems are influencing us, and we are currently lacking long-term impact studies of these interactions. In order to be able to achieve human-AI hybrid intelligence systems, we need AI models that are capable of interacting fluidly with us and to understand our interests dynamically and change accordingly. The current progress of OpenAI's GPT-4 Omni is a right step towards the right direction. Yet current AI systems still lack the ability to update their model weights based on the data learned in the interactions from users real time. They are pre-trained. Rather than pushing their predictions to us, human-AI hybrid intelligence systems would require interactions with AI models in which AI encourages people to reach their own conclusions by enabling them access to the relevant information to the situation or task at hand. I hope that we will be seeing more of these in our community in the future. We should never forget that research in AI began as an attempt to understand our own intelligence, its atrophy, its augmentation, or amplification. Which goal are we striving for? When is it acceptable to entrust core cognitive competencies to an AI tool, and when might this pose too great of a risk? What are the long-term implications of the tools that we are developing and implementing in our practice on our own cognitive capabilities? As researchers and practitioners in education, we must exercise wisdom in answering such questions and consider also alternative conceptualizations of AI rather than those commercially driven tools imposing to us. For a commercially driven tool, more number of people spending more amount of time with the model is good. But is this what we want as an educational research and practice community? To conclude this talk, allow me to reiterate some of the main points I was trying to make today. First, AI as an applied tool may be beneficial for some productivity gains, but we should ensure that the use of AI makes people more competent rather than becoming more dependent on AI. A lot of my students can code so much better now with the help of AI. When I take the AI out of equation, their ability to code drops significantly. What does this mean? Second, AI solutions are not only closed engineering systems, but part of a large ecosystem. Therefore, significant ecosystem-level factors should be addressed for any AI solution to improve education, including infrastructure, governance, teacher training, and assessment structures. Third, although the current rhetoric heavily focuses on AI as a tool in educational setups, AI models can also be objects to think about learning, helping us understand and potentially improve human learning. In these explorations, we might come to the conclusion that some aspects of learning may only come through the slow experience of living those learning moments, and they can't be hacked with AI predictions. Therefore, perhaps not all aspects of teaching and learning should be directly intervened by AI. At last, although exciting developments and significant technological developments are emerging, it is unlikely that AI alone will solve any of the fundamental problems in our education systems. Applications of AI in education and the visionary direction in strategic policies must be informed by research evidence and multi-stakeholder dialogue. Saltise and this conference is an excellent opportunity to form and conduct such discussions, and I look forward to finding out the outcomes of these discussions and where these will take us forward with regards to the future of education. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. I hope this was relevant. Should I sit?
Your slide on making sure that human competency remains at the forefront. But the example you gave with regard to your students and their coding when you take the AI away, I understand that their competency with regard to coding skills perhaps does not remain the same, but is that necessary? Can humans develop new competencies that are more meaningful to a future in which we can actually address the polycrisis, as against trying to become better coders? Perhaps I often think about the collaboration skills, breaking down the problem and the small pieces that come together, and the AI can write the code.
Thank you very much for this question. It's a fascinating question. So let me make it clear. I am not saying that none of these tasks should be automated. Maybe it doesn't matter that we don't code anymore, and that's perfectly fine. To me, the problem is twofold. One, we don't really discuss what kind of tasks are currently being automated and what are the implications of this in the long term, and if it is okay for the future of humanity or not. We are just following the flow and go ahead with this automation without any kind of in-depth thinking. For instance, throughout the centuries, automation brought significant impact on our physical capabilities. We do not appear to do a lot of our physical tasks ourselves these days, which means that compared to previous centuries, as a generation, our physical strength has decreased. And this is perfectly fine, perhaps. We go to gyms, we train, we do other things to recover. But if the same thing happens for a particular task, this should be a deliberate decision that we are okay that this is a competency that will atrophy in the long term. As long as we are having this discussion, I'm very happy to go ahead with this. But we are not really having it yet.
So it might be detail that could lead to something interesting. You advocated very well for collective action. You also addressed some issues with assessment, especially with lifelong learning. So I wonder what you're thinking about the potential for collective assessment, basically.
I'm sorry, there is too much echo.
Oh, sorry.
I couldn't hear the last part of your question.
For collective assessment. So both collectively assessing, learning processes, but also assessing processes that are collectively learned.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think there is huge value in these kind of practices of collective assessment. And I'm assuming you use collective in both the humans are working within the community and human AI part of the collective attempts. I think there is huge value in these kind of approaches. So maybe I can clarify this with a more AI terminology manner. Oftentimes, when people talk about the use cases in these kind of difficult problems like assessment, where humans are expected to work with AI, they talk about this concept of human in the loop. So we should always be keeping humans in the loop. We should always be letting humans to work with AI to achieve better outcomes and potential productivity gains in tasks. But this concept of human in the loop is a very tricky concept. In these kind of collective efforts, it is very difficult for each member of the community not to be influenced by others. This is the whole point of creating collective assessments. And unfortunately, there is a very strong human propensity towards easy energy levels. So I'm afraid that in these kind of collective efforts, when we are interacting with AI solutions, we will be taking the easy route towards converging on what AI suggests rather than us taking a stronger stand and trying to challenge critically what AI tells to us. We are observing this in today's society when we see that when people Google, they don't bother to go through 30 pages of suggestions. We choose the first option that comes to us. And that might be the case in these kind of collective efforts. We will be taking the first suggestion of a grade or a mark from an AI and converge towards this direction because it's well aligned with the human propensity towards lower energy states. And that's my worry. So yes, it would be fantastic, but it should be very well scaffolded that these are genuinely collective. I think in human communities, it's relatively easier, but similar attempts are being put in place to achieve the value that comes out of these collective efforts. And we should be even more strict when one of the members or an agent is part of this collective effort. I hope that answers.
So, here.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering
10 minutes of technical issues, the stress levels were too high, so I'm still trying to find my way.
I was wondering if you could comment. I know you've hinted about it a little bit about perspective, right? A few years ago, like the ideal in a classroom was to have like a bunch of screens everywhere. Now we're coming to realize that our kids have actually higher propension of anxiety due to the amount of screen time. Social media was thought about something that was going to be, so huge, and then we're seeing a lot of issues. And I was wondering if you could comment about maybe like the idea of perspective towards AI that maybe we don't have so much yet, and whether or not you're feeling that we should have more, maybe. If you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much for this question. It's a fascinating consideration with regards to how much of this interaction is actually okay and valuable, and where do we draw the boundaries with regards to the amount of time that is spent with these models. Frankly, I am very keen on bringing in strict control, particularly for certain underage children and students engaging with these tools. And whenever this happens, it should be very transparent. So all the interaction is clearly put out as an output that is monitored by a parent or a responsible adult, rather than just letting underage members of the society, children, engage with these as freely as maybe they might want to do so. I think we should put a little bit more strict regulations there. With regards to adults, I think I find it very tricky because on the one hand, it might be putting mitigation on the human agency to make decisions about what is good for them and how do they want to spend their time. And on the other hand, we observe a lot of negative impact of this increased amount of time spent. So I don't really know I don't have an answer to this particular question, but what I know is that the values that drive these decisions about the amount of screen time should not really come from commercial bodies that generate these tools. Not because they are evil, not because they are not intelligent either. These are fascinating people. They are doing amazing things. But the values that drive the interaction are all about increased number of people engaging more amount of time with their platforms. That's not going to pan out well for us. And I think we need to push back a little bit stronger.
Sit here and say, I can't help but sit here and say, absolutely, we need to applaud that. I think we cannot let, big corporations or intellectuals just push back, push on us with these things without pushing back. So thank you for saying that, Mutlu.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have one question from online audience. So if interacting with LLMs support content acquisition and learning then focuses on acquiring lifelong learning skills, what would that look like and how would it be assessed? What about mastery?
Well, this is the video that I was trying to show there, how it could potentially look like, but this will be highly dependent upon other ecosystem level factors. My worry is that this kind of change that we observed in this Austin school is a kind of change that affluent schools and regions can afford, but many others do not have the luxury to be able to provide enough amount of adult time and support to these students. So what would happen, what is likely to happen, is that this kind of AI interaction time or students working with a large language model is considered as a compensation to a very valuable human adult interaction with the students. And this will lead to further widening of the existing systemic inequalities that we have in our education systems. We know from existing research on what good pedagogical practices are, including all of these approaches to inquiry-based learning, including all of these approaches to project-based learning. We know how to implement these instructional strategies to support lifelong learning competencies of students, but it takes time and it takes significant amount of expertise from the teachers. So if we take the amount of time a teacher delivers content acquisition in these 2 hours interaction time between the student and the large language model, these 2 hours should not be spent on adding more productivity requirements to a teacher so that the teacher can take a step back to decrease their workload, which is already at a very high level, to think more reflectively how I could actually support these kind of hands-on constructivist learning activities. And this will be highly diverse in many senses, depending on the enabling factors, ecosystem level enabling factors. And I hope that we will not be finding ourselves in a situation that these are leading to further systemic inequalities. Unfortunately, looking at how technological solutions like MOOCs were initially introduced to democratize education, and when we look at the impact of these, actually affluent countries are getting the most out of these, and they are causing widening gap. It is very likely if we don't do anything at an ecosystem level, this will be the case for human AI interaction.
Thank you. I see there's a couple of other questions, but I have a timeline to follow, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to cut things off there. I'd like to thank Mutlu very, very much for his talk. All right, so before we let you go, I'd like to remind you of a couple of things. Events right after this, there's the poster session outside, and as Michael said, lots and lots and lots of posters, lots of submissions. Please go and look at the posters, ask questions. That's a part of the Saltise community and the Saltise conference that we want to grow, so we're very happy about that. Please take advantage of the poster panel sessions right now. The posters are from students. Some are from students, exactly, and some from practitioners, researchers. Yes, good. Right, so just to let you know, there's a diversity in terms of where those posters are coming from. Yeah? Is that okay? Today. So other things, tomorrow morning, just before lunch, there will be a panel plenary. I believe it's in here. Please come to that. The speakers will, I'm sure, take some of Mutlu's talk and run with that. Last thing would be the awards ceremony and the closing reception tomorrow at 4 p.m. Please don't forget that. There are some people getting some well-deserved rewards, and it's really nice to have us as a community embrace the wonderful things that are going on, and it's a better embrace when there are more bodies in the room. So please come for tomorrow's closing ceremonies at 4 o'clock if you can at all. There'll be wine. I don't know if that helps. So with that, again, I'd like to thank Mutlu for traveling to Montreal, to spending time with us today, inspiring us. I think that's what a keynote does, is it broadens your perspective, allows you then to sort of think about how you set a course to the future, and I think you did that perfectly. So thank you, Mutlu, very much.